Beginning current Daf, Mesech's Chagigah Daf Hey, begin 10 lines down at the top of the Amud. But the Gemara continues in the theme of the previous Daf. When certain Amirom would reach a certain psukim, they would cry about the great lesson or challenge that was exemplified in that pasuk. We continue on that theme. Shays goes back to Bekazik and Nachas, anytime Daf Achayim, which previous never was doing for today's Daf. Something we discussed in today's Daf are agadic expositions on certain types of phrases. One of them being Hein b'Kedushav L'Yamin. Hashem does not place complete faith even in holy individuals. Ki es kol ma'aseh likim yodeh b'mishpat al kol nelam. Hashem judges a person on all his actions, even the hidden ones. Haneisen tzedakah la'ani b'farhesia, only gives tzedakah to a poor person in public. Ro'is shenasu tzara zu lezu, when a person has a unique problem of when he actually has two illnesses which require opposite treatments. V'neichi has to ask the pana b'yamahu, appropriate for this month of other. Hashem sometimes hides from us. It's actually that personifies a Yid. Magid Odem Masicha, Hashem records everything we ever say. Mokim Yesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mistar Mishmai. Hashem has a place that's considered concealed with where Hashem cries Kiviyachol. V'demeya Tidma V'ter De'enei Dima Kinish B'eder Hashem. There are different reasons for Hashem's crying in his tears. And Rabbi Abdechad Yema, the well-known story of a student who traveled 6 months for the year to learn in yeshiva for one day. So begin the current Daf Hey, I'm an Aleph, 10 lines down at the top of the Amud. So, like we mentioned, the theme, Rabbi Yochanan Kimotl Haikra Bachi, when he would reach the following pasuk here, he would cry. The pasuk says that's in the context over there, where Hashem said to the Satan, did you pay attention to my servant Eve? There's no one like him in the land. He's a complete and upright and God-fearing person who stays away from the bad, and he's still staying strong in his faithfulness. And the pasuk says, and he, the Satan, is inciting me to swallow Eve for nothing. So Rabbi Yochanan would cry. He says, and this is so a servant that his master gets incited, and he actually becomes seduced by that. And we see the story of Eve, where Hashem listened to the Satan, and he swallowed, like, so to speak, Eve for nothing. Does the person have any way of remedying his situation? How could he deal with it if his master is going to get incited by the Satan? Again, Rabbi Yochanan, Kimot Laikra, when he reached the following pasuk in Eve, Bachi, he would cry. It says, Hein b'Kedushav L'Yamin, behold, in his holy ones he doesn't trust. So, Hein b'Kedushav L'Yamin, in his holy ones he doesn't trust. B'man Yamin, so who's going to trust in? I mean, how could we get God's faith in us? The Gemara brings a story. The one day Rabbi Yochanan was going on the road. So he saw a certain person that he was plucking, he was harvesting the figs. Now interesting, he left over the ripe figs. He was picking the figs that didn't ripen yet. So Rabbi Yochanan said to him, I don't understand, aren't the ripe figs better? Why are you picking the unripe ones? So the guy who was picking the figs said, no, these figs that I'm picking, I need for the journey. Those that are not fully ripened yet, natron, they will stay, they won't be quick to rot because they're not fully ripened yet. But natron, the ones that are already fully ripened, they're not going to stay. So Rabbi Yochanan said, this is what when the pasuk we quoted, he would cry by means, Hein b'Kedushav L'Yamin, behold, by his holy ones he doesn't trust in, because the good figs, he was afraid that maybe they're going to rot. So too the Bachrim, the young righteous people, they're snatched and they die, because lest they're going to sin, that's the same thing. He needs it for the journey and is afraid that they're going to rot, so he wants to get them now before they ripen. That's the same thing with the tzaddikim, that the Bachrim, that they die at a young age, because he doesn't want them to rot. Says the Gemara, is that really so? There's such an idea. But Vahu Talmid did have a bishop of Alexandria. There was a certain student that was the neighbor of Alexandria. The Shachmat Dezut, and he died young when he was still a bacher. And Rabbi Alexandria said, if this one of the students, if he wanted to go in the good path, he would have lived. But it was his own bad ways that caused him to die. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? If the concept we just said is true, maybe he was from those that God, he wasn't tzaddik, he wasn't a rosh, he was b'derech tovim. But God, so to speak, is afraid, he doesn't want anything to happen, so he snatches him when he's still young. So how do we know that he was not a good person? Says the Gemara now, Alexandria recognized this Bachar, that he was not from the Kedoshim, not from the holy ones. And he rebelled against his teachers. Now it says, that it's not going to be good for the wicked. He's not going to live a long time. Like the passages in Kehelis could say, like a shade, like a shadow, and that's not afraid of from God. Which the Gemara Kedushin, the Megillah base teaches that what does it mean, Meira? So when it says V'dartu Pnei Zokan V'Yodesim Lekecha, what does it mean fearing God? It means that it's Kavod Chacham. So this person that was rebellious against his teachers, he qualifies for the pasuk that V'lo Yarach Yamim, because he's in the end of Yorim Melifnei Elikim, which says there's not going to be Yarach Yamim, which exactly means when someone doesn't honor the Talmidei Chachamim, his rabbis, then that's someone who doesn't merit to live a long time. But you're right, in general, there could be such a person that he's really a tzaddik, but he could die at a young age. Again, Rabbi Yechon reached the following pasuk, he would cry, pasuk Malachim. It says, I'm going to bring you close to judgment, and I'm going to be a swift witness regarding your practicing of sorcery, and your practicing of adultery, and for those of you who swear falsely, and for those of you who extort the payment of the hired labor. So Rabbi Yechon cried, he says, the servant that his master brings him near to judge him. And he's swift to testify against him. Is there any remedy for such a servant? Meaning that Rabbi Shloimy wants to be mekarev the din and be marred on the testimony of our bad things. Now, Amr Bichem Zaki takes one step further in that pasuk. He says, "Oy lana, woe to us. Shashakalein akasav." The pasuk is equating to us kalos, the light averos, which is just not paying a worker, kachamuros, like the most severe sins of adultery and of sorcery, where it's putting them all together in the same pasuk. That's also a scary thing. Amr Shlakish, continuing with that same pasuk, he says, "Kolamata dina shel ger," whoever tilts and distorts the judgment of a convert, kilamata dina shel ma'ala, as if he's twisted the judgment of above. Because it says there in the pasuk, "Umate ger," and those who tilt the ger, but umati ksiv. Although it's read umate, it's written mati. So umati is like Hashem speaking amati, and they tilt me, so that when it's regarding the ger, it's as if they went and they tilted the judgment towards Hashem, meaning away from Hashem in a bad way. Now that same pasuk that we brought before, Omer Chadira Puppet brings the related drasha. It says, whoever does something and regrets it, so they forgive him right away. Like it says in the pasuk, it discusses, the way our Gemara makes it sound like you do something, you regret it, you get mechila right away. Because Shem and it says over there in that same pasuk, and they didn't fear me. The inference is, if they would fear me, then they would have mechila right away. Again, Rabbi Yochanan, he would come to this pasuk, he would cry. So we said it's a real emotion when you actually read a pasuk. Rabbi Yochanan would actually cry. Pasuk says in Kehelis, because all the actions, God is going to bring to judgment. A kol nelam, for everything that is hidden, which sounds like that even that which is hidden from the person that he did by mistake, God is still going to bring to judgment. So Rabbi Yochanan would cry, says, that a servant, that the master equates his erroneous sins, like his deliberate sins, does he have a remedy? I mean, that's a really high level of judgment. Now the Gemara asks, Ma'al kol nelam. What does it mean when it says on everything that's hidden? That sounds like even something very small would be included. What's kol nelam? So Amar Rav, now we really should cry by reading the drashas about what they say about even what's hidden, how deep is the judgment. It says, this is someone who kills the louse, the lice in front of his friend, v'nimisba, and he gets repulsed by it because he's taking his dandruff and he's flicking it, or he's whatever, there's little lice on him, he's killing it. That's already al kol nelam, the mamish, you don't chap that you're doing anything. For that, a person is brought by mishpat. Shmuel he says similarly, he says, someone spits in front of it, he has some phlegm, he spits it out. That, a person, if his friend gets disgusted by that, for that he gets punished for. And actually, even more, says the Gemara, what's the end of the pasuk mean when it says, im toivim ra, if it's good or bad? It sounds like that even for the good, Hashem's going to bring him to judgment for. What does that mean? At least the good should be good for us? No. Because now the Rabbi Yochanan said, this refers to someone who gives charity to a poor person in public, in a publicized way, where for that he's actually brought to judgment. Because Kihad Rabbi Yana, like there was by Rabbi Yana, he saw a certain person, just make a ganze rash, and say, oh, come here, this net, and say, give him this money to the ani in public. Amalei said to him, Mutav, better would have been that you didn't give him anything at all. Mahashta the obviously because after. Now you gave him and you embarrassed him. Obviously, if the person himself is coming around, you're not embarrassing him. But if the poor person, is saying, oh, you needed money, right? And you give it to him, that's taking toivim ra. That actually, even for the good that a person does, he can be brought to judgment. Similarly, the Rabbi Shila Amri, in the yeshiva of Shila, they said, like for a carrot, but here's regarding a woman. So he gives charity to a woman discreetly, in private. They bring her to suspicion. What's this guy coming all the time to this woman's house alone? So you're doing something good, but that's going to bring to judgment because now people are starting to suspect this woman. Rav Ami says another pshat. He says, this is someone who sends to his wife, meat that wasn't cut, meaning you didn't have what's called nikur, which removes the forbidden fats and the ligaments that are forbidden, the giranash, all these different things, that wasn't cut out, and he sent it to his wife ba'arvi Shabbos on Friday afternoons. Now, since the women are very quick preparing the tzarchi Shabbos, they don't pay attention if it was nula nukra or not. So that's a good action. You're helping your wife. You're sending home meat from the store, but you're going to get judged for that because you're causing a sin by not having taken that out and sending it that way. And the Gemara wonders on this last pshat. This is Rav's pshat, but Rav Meshagir, Rav himself would do this. Erev Shabbos, he would go to the butcher and he would send back to his wife meat that he didn't do nikkur on. So how can you say that that's exactly what you get judged for? Says Gemara, no, Shani Bas Rav Chizah, the daughter of Chizah, which was Rav's wife, is different because the Kim lay bigavod the bekia. He knew regarding her that she is well versed in these halachas and she is from such a home. But in general, that would be a problem, that would be a violation. Gemara continues. When Rabbi Yochanan reached the following pasuk, he would cry, pasuk in the Varm. Talks about them by the Teichacha, it says, that it's going to be when it's going to find him, much bad and challenges. So he would cry, he says, it says kisim meaning a servant that his master is making it that it should encounter him. Bad and difficult. In fact, is there a remedy for him? In other words, like it's something Hashem is trying to make us have this, do we have a remedy? Now, once we bring in the pasuk, we want to ask, what does it mean that there's evil and challenges? What does evil and challenges have to do that you're putting them together? So Meravi actually says it's one thing. It's rois, it's evils, they become tsaras. We're going to have very soon in the next Masechta, the word tsaras is going to come a lot. We're going to have the word tsaras, that tsarisehen, what does it mean to say? It actually means that they're near each other. If we have a pasuk in Shmuel Afik, that it's like when you have two women together, what's called co-wives. So the rois become tsaras one to the other. What does that mean? What does it mean that they're near each other and they're challenging one for the other? Like the wasp and the scorpion. What does that mean? It's like Rashi and Teisus both bring the Gemara and Avodah Zara and the Chochesm base tells us interesting that hot is helpful for when the person gets bitten by a scorpion. Now, cold is good actually when the person gets bitten by a wasp, and the opposite is actually dangerous. So therefore, if someone gets bitten by a wasp and by a scorpion, so that becomes tsarazulazu. Those rois are tsarazulazu because there's no remedy. You can't use cold because that's going to be harmful for the scorpion bite. You can't use hot because that's going to be harmful for the wasp bite. That is when the pasuk says what's going to happen is rois with tsaras, that the rois become tsarazulazu, that there's no way out. Can't tsaras krichen because you're between the rock and the hard place. Either one is going to be harmful because of the other one. Shmuel Amar. Now we have Machlekes Rashi and Teisus what Shmuel is going on. Rashi says Shmuel Amar is going back on the prior Gemara that we had said of him toivim ra. That Shmuel's saying, what does it mean toivim ra? That we said you can get judged even for the good. This refers to someone who gives money to a poor person at a time of difficulty, meaning that only when he's like mamish, the guys like they're taking away his home and they're everything, they're being thrown out. So then the person's only the hero, he comes in and he gives him money, but not before the difficulty where he could have gotten money, he could have bought stuff at a good price. No, that's someone that's going to get judged for the good. Then why are you coming in last second? Taisus brings from Rabbi Tam that no, it's actually going on the Tsar's Rabbis V'Rois that we were just discussing. What Rav said a pshat, and Shmuel is saying a pshat on that too. What does it mean? Tzoros Rabbis Zerois is someone gives money to a poor person in this time of difficulty. What does that mean? Because, for example, let's say the government is coming and saying that you got to pay up taxes. And the guy says, I don't have. So this guy comes along and says, don't worry, I'll lend you money on your properties. Now, if this guy wouldn't come, so the government would have been easy and would say, okay, look, you don't have, okay, we'll give you whatever, we'll take whatever you got. So, and this person comes along and he says, no, don't worry, I'll lend you money to pay the taxes. So that's someone that, that's called the ro'is, the tzaros, that's what Taisa says from Rabbi Tam, is what he's coming to explain. That's a tzara of Rav. Amar Rava, now according to Edom Pshat, what Rav is coming to say, this is what people say, Zuzala Allah. So the way Rashi explains it, that in his first Pshat, is that with money to buy grain, that's not common. You're not going to have people help you when you want to make investments or get stuff that you get at a decent price. But with Lisa, but for a loss, that's shchich. That's found, meaning when the person's down in the dumps, when it's not going to be so helpful anymore. So that's going to be something that's going to be found. Which Taisa says for his pshat is also similar, that if a person wants to buy grain for feed, that no one's going to lend. But suddenly if the government wants to take away and they let him off the hook, then suddenly someone's going to come. So that's like tzaras v'dais. Now going back to the pasuk we mentioned before about the Teichachav in that same parak. So it says, and Hashem says, and my anger is going to flare up against him. By Yomי, on that day, azavtim, and I'm going to let him go. I'm going to forsake him. And I'm going to hide my face from them. So I'm going to Daf Yomi. He says, and kol she'ein behest upon him, anyone who's not included in the Hashem's face being hidden from them, he's not from the Jewish people. Meaning the Hanoichi Asta. That Hashem is hidden from us is actually such a part and parcel of being a Jew that if someone doesn't have it, it's actually not a Yisrael. And Kol She'ein, whoever's not for the bad, where it says that he's going to be consumed by his enemies as he continues to come his base, he's not from the Jewish people, because the pasuk says in the Bar Laman I'm going to hide my face from them, that they're going to scream out from the tsars that come on them, and they're not answered that the salvation doesn't come. That's actually this month of Adar, that's the lesson, that's the preparation for Purim already that the Daf is telling us. That it's a bechin of a nechi asta. That's where Esther and Terminayim. And we have to realize that Hashem hides himself, and that's put that preparation, that's what it means to be a Jewish person and have that emunah. And then, by Purim, we can celebrate Adal Yadad, and you realize the salvation comes. Now, if you remember the story actually related to this, the rabbi said to Rabbi, what do you mean, Marla behest upon Misa? You the master, you're not in the hester upon him. You don't have anything like as if Hashem is hiding his face from you. But like b'v'hoy lechel, so you're not included in b'hoy lechel. In other words, that the idol worshippers, they steal away the money. You don't have any of that. I thought every yid has to have this like as if things are not working out for him. You have your life is pretty charming. Although he said to them, Via de Isu, do you know? And this is actually very common, and people think people's lives are very charming. Like, do you really know how much discreet that I send towards King Shapor? You're looking at my life, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Says even though he responded like that, the rabbis were looking at him like, Taka, what's going on? He doesn't have anything, the difficulties we has no hester upon him. At the Hachi, in the meantime, showed the Beishar Malka that the King Shapur's henchmen pillaged Ugravu, and they grabbed him and plundered all his money, which Taisa says is brought in the Gemara Brachas and Lenvav, when Bahedya had translated his dream. But upon him, Amar Rabba said, Haini that time, this is what it says in the Bryce, Amar B'Shemim Lil. Wherever the sages placed their eyes, it's either death or poverty, and if they took away his money, because when the rabbis are looking, then that's something that has a lot of energy that could take away a person's either livelihood or his actual life. Gemara continues with that same pasuk that we mentioned before, where Hashem says, I'm going to surely hide my face on that day. So Rabba says, now Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying, he's alluding to something here in the pasuk. Even though I'm going to hide my face from them, but in a dream I'm going to speak to him. Because, as Rashi tells us, the dik is from the word bayemahu, on that day. Why day, but not at nighttime? Because at nighttime, Hashem is going to appear to the tzaddikim in the dream, so that they should daven for the tzaras that come to the Jewish people, and therefore Hashem is still alluding to the fact that He's not going to totally leave them alone. And Rabbi Yosef Amar, he says, Yodin Netuyalin. He says more than that. He says his hand, Hashem's hand, is outstretched over us to protect us. Shlomo says the pasuk Yeshaya, "V'tzel Yodi, in the shade of my hand, Kisisicha, I conceal you." The Gemara brings a story related to this exact idea. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya have a koi bekesi. He was by the palace of the Caesar. Achvilahu af kirusa. There was a certain apikoides, which they don't believe in the words of the sages, like the tzaddikim, the Sadducees. And this Sadducee showed him like a sign. He alluded to him by turning away his face. He was trying to allude to Reb Shua ben Chananya that that you're from the people that God turned his face away, as if he's not a Jew also, he's also, but he's apikoros, so they don't really care about their reality. But he turns his face away to show, God turned his face away from you, like the pasuk says. So he showed him, like with his hand, like stretching out his hand, as if God's hand is still outstretched over us. So only Kis Rabbi Shua, so the Caesar Rabbi Shua, what did he show? What's he showing you by turning his face? So he says, he was trying to show me that I'm a people that God turns his face away from us. Like we said, but I was showing him that his hand is still stretched out over us. So then they said to that heretic, what did you show him? So he said, he said, I showed him that he's the people that God turns his face away from him. And what did you show him? And what did he show you? He says, I don't know what he was trying to show with his hand stretched out. It's like the famous story with the one finger and the apples and this and that. He doesn't know what he's doing over here. They said, a person who doesn't know when they show him with some type of a hand body language, he's going to be doing this motions in front of the king. They took him out and they killed him, they executed him. Now, related to that idea, actually, Gemara says, Kikonicha nafshi de Rishum Echanani was passing away. The rabbi said to him, My tabalon apikordosin. What do we do with apikordosin? I mean, you're the only one who knows how to debate them and show them that they're from their heresy. So let me said to him a pasuk in Yomie. It says, Of the Eitzami Banim, counselors lost from the sons, Nistracha Chachmasam, their wisdom is soured. Which the pasuk there says, "Hayin oid chachma b'teiman." Is there no more wisdom in Teiman? Of the Eitzami Banim, that's when the counsel is lost from the sons, meaning from the Jewish people. So he explains, Kivashav the Eitzami Banim. Once the counsel is lost from the sons, nisrucha chachmas and shalom, then the wisdom of the sages is lost. In other words, the world is always equivalent for the good and the bad. So although I'm passing away and there's no one around that could litigate and defend the Jewish faith from these heretics. So don't worry, they're also going to lose their wisdom because it's always equal playing field. And the fact that it's you read Zadaris, they also have you read Zadaris. And people say, if you want, you could say from a pasuk in Bereshis. But Yomie that Esau said to Yaakov, let's travel and let's go. And I'll go opposite you, meaning equal to you. Again, Esau was alluding to Yaakov that we're b'shava, we're equal. So the great tzaddik, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, dies who can't defend these tzaddukim. Tzaddukim are also not going to have anyone that's going to be able to be a protagonist in these debates. Now, continuing on this theme, Rabbi Ila have a silik b'darga de beirav v'ashila. So Rabbi Ila was going up on the ladder by the yeshiva, the house of Rabbi Vashila. Shamali Nuka Davakukari, he heard a child, I mean the theme of all these psukim that we're discussing, he heard a child that was reading out a pasuk in Amos. Ki hine yotzid harim. Behold, he forms the mountains, and he creates the wind. And he tells the person what is what's his conversation. Somehow he said, you have a servant that his master tells him everything he's talking about. Is there any remedy for him? This guy, you have a boss that everything you say he's jumping on. So what type of remedy can you have? And that's what the Rabbi Shloimy, he hears his pasuk as he's climbing up the steps. It's yeshiva. And it's like, what type of remedy do we have? Now the Gemara says, what does it mean, his sicha? As we know that sicha is usually like a light conversation, more like schmoozing. So what is the pasuk alluding to? So Rabbi says, should be even an extra excess conversation, like more of like laughing, that's before intimacy between a man and a woman. They tell a person when at the time of death, in other words, every last piece of conversation, that's the scariness why he was crying. It's like, is there any way of us dealing with this, that everything we say is going to be measured. So the Gemara says, is that really so that this is like a bad thing? You can get judged for that, light conversation that person has before intimacy, as if that's like, one of those things you should be careful about. But Rav Kahana Bagoni, Tusi Puri did out. Rav Kahana was hiding beneath the bed of Rab. The Shami, he heard him, the Sach, he was schmoozing, with Sachak, he was laughing, and he did his needs of intimacy. Amay said, it would seem like the mouth of Rab is commandle tomle tapshil, it's like as if he never tasted a cooked dish. I mean, like he's so hungry to eat. In other words, he desires this tashmish, this heilig. It's not a grace, a rebbe shazach, to be like this type of thing, which obviously we see that it's not like that, and that's something very important. Obviously, Amalei said, "Kahana po, Kahana out. It's not appropriate to be over here." Which other place in Shas they say this idea about what do you mean? It's Tairi Beluman Tzarach, and that's also an important lesson. But the Gemara says over here, I don't know. It sounds like it's a good thing, which this is what Rav was doing. So why are we saying you get judged for that? As if Magilon Masicha, a person should not be making all these conversations. So the Gemara says, "Lekash, not difficult." Kan the Tzarach Leratzuya. Here by Rav we're talking about where he has to pisa. So that's the Helix Tzach, because the objective is to have closeness and intimacy, and therefore, of course, schmoozing and laughing and all these things is the most appropriate, the holiest things. And therefore, Rav, the holy Amoy Rav, did that. But if you don't need to do that, and you're doing it because of your own personal gratification, so that's something that, Magalot Masecha, that a person is doing this in a lightheaded way, that even that, they're going to tell the person, B'shas Misasai, don't even think that that's like, they're going to come only after the big honcho things that you've done. They're going to come after even those conversations before him too. The pasuk in Yomי says, "Ve'im loisish mu'uha." If you don't listen to this, the mistorim tivka nafshi. In the hidden places, my soul will cry. Hashem says, and they gave up because of your greatness. So what does this mean? So I'm going to have Shmuel ba'inyav shmei deram. It says, "Makom yesh lakadosh baruch Hu." There is a place for God. And its name is called Mistarim, the hidden place. And that's where God cries. It says, when they gave us, so what does it mean he's going to cry because of the greatness? So I'm going to have Shmuel by Yitzchak said, because of the greatness of the Jewish people, which was taken from them, was given to the idol worshippers. That's why God cries in this hidden place. A different shot of Shmuel by Nechemeni said, it's because of the greatness of the heavenly kingdom that was taken away. That's why God cries. It says the Gemara, and this is all about crying that we were talking about before, when we reached the pasuk of cry. The Gemara says, is they really crying in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? But Papa says, there's no even sadness. There's no depression in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So like it says the pasuk of Yom Aleph. It says, glory and majesty is in front of him. And delight is in his place. So you see that where he is only delight and might and glory and majesty. So how could it be that he cries? It's not difficult, it depends where. This is in the inner chambers, like it says, that God cries. But this is in the outer chambers, there Hashem, like the famous words of the Chavis Avavas, that Tzaddik has Talasa Alponov, but he has the Agosoi, he has inside of him, he has his worry, but on the face he's smiling. That's how people are, and that's why Kadosh Baruch Hu is also, where inside he's crying, but on the outside is where he has, everything is happy. It says more really, but in the outer rooms, there's no sadness from Hashem, because it's only Oiz V'chedvu. But Vaksiva says the pasuk in Yeshaya, Vayikra, that he called out, and anytime there's a kriya, it means it's out loud. He called it Adonai Hashem Tzavakis Bayemahu, the Lord Hashem of hosts, that he said on that day, meaning of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, he called out Labchi for crying, Lamispid, and for eulogizing, Lakarcha, and for tearing, Lach Gersak, and to girdle with a sackcloth. So we see that there was crying out loud. So I thought you said Hashem only cries b'mistarim, b'bati gavoy, but in the outside he doesn't. It's everything is smiles and they're all joy. So you go, yeah, that's usual. But Shanechu Beis Hamikdash, the destruction of Beis Hamikdash is different. Even the angels of peace they cried. Something says the pasuk in Yeshaya, Hein behold et olam tzaku chutza. So the simple pshat Taisa says is going on the mizbeach, that the mizbeach screamed on the outside. But here it's alluding to the malachim Malach Shalom, the angels of peace, Mariv Kum, they cried bitterly. So that's why it was different over here. That even though, Hashem was screaming out loud on the outside, it was crying, but generally, no. On the Bati Baroy, on the outside rooms, Hashem doesn't cry, it's only on the inside. You know, passing of Yirmi over there, it says, that regarding Hashem's crying, it says, V'demoyet sidma, and I will surely cry, V'teidet eni dimma, and my eyes will come down, tears, ki nish be'eder Hashem, because the flock of Hashem has been taken captive. So, Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Shalosh demoyes halal olama. Why are there 3 tiers? V'demoyet, tidma, and it says again, V'teidet eni dimma. These 3 tiers, what are they alluding to? So Achas HaMikdash Rishon, one's for the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. Achas HaMikdash one's for the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. Achas HaYisrael Shagol Mukam, and the third one's for the Jews who were exiled from that place. But the say that the third one is now Achas HaBittul Torah. One's for the nullification of the learning of Torah. So the Gemara says Bishlam about Damu Yansan, according to one that says Al Yisrael Shagol regarding it because the Jews who were exiled. Heinrich said that because that's what the pasuk is saying with the Kidnish Be'ed Hashem, because the flock of Hashem has been taken captive. According to one that says that he's crying Hashem for the stopping of the learning of Torah, my Kiddush Be'eder Hashem, what does it mean? Because the flock of Hashem has been taken captive. So the says, yes, Kivin Shagoli Yisrael and once the Jews have been exiled from the place, like that's what Kiddush Be'eder Hashem is referring to. God says no greater Bittul Torah than this, because when they're being exiled, they're not able to learn as they're normally able to, and therefore that's what the pasuk is alluding to in Nish Be'eder Hashem, but it's referring to the Bittul Torah, and that's why Hashem is crying. For that's the third one, which actually related to this idea that Hashem cries when people don't learn Torah. There's 3 individuals that God cries over them every single day. What are these 3? The first one is like we said, if someone is able to learn Torah and he doesn't, Hashem cries over him and says, Nabuch, what this person, what he's missing out on. The second one, which is interesting, is someone who cannot learn Torah and he does learn Torah. What that means, on the simple, would sound like that someone who ekenish, learned. Hashem cries like, wow, look what this person does, that he's pushing himself to such an extent that even though he's really not able to, but he finds the ability to learn. And the third one is when there's a leader who's arrogant over the people, that he's bossing people around and he takes it as an opportunity just for his own self-centered, egocentric view, that Hashem cries over that person every single day, that apparently this was given as an opportunity to help out the people, and not only that, he goes and he's arrogant over the people. Now the Gemara goes regarding back to this idea of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, the Rebbe have a Noket Sefer Kinas. Rebbe was holding on to a book of Lamentations, which is a reference to the Sefer Eicha. He was reading from it. When he reached the pasuk in Eicha, Hishlich Mishamayim Aretz, he threw down from the heaven to the ground the Jewish people. So Nafal Min Yadei, the Sefer Eicha fell from his hand. Amai says Me'igr from such great heights, Lebira Mikta, to such a deep pit. In other words, how great of a fall is that? There's nothing higher than the heaven, and there's nothing deeper of a pit than earth, and that was the downfall of the Jewish people by the Churban. Additionally, the Gemara continues, once we mentioned Rabbi, Gemara brings a story. They were going and they were walking on the road. When they came to a certain town, so they said that is there a Talmudic scholar over here? When the Kabbalah Appa will go and they will receive his face, leave him a Kabbalah upon him. So Amri, they said to them, yes, there is a Talmudic scholar over here, and he's a person who is blind. So I'm going to Rebbe said, Rebbe, Tivat, you stay over here. Like there's also been this don't disgrace your Nesius, you're the Rebbe, you're the leader of the Jewish people. It's not appropriate that the Rebbe goes Mimakabal Punim a blinde Tamachuchem. You Isla no, but I'll go off Mimakabal Punim by him, but you stay here in the lodgings. But Takfei, Rebbe grabbed a hold of Rebbe also Badei, and he went with him. He wasn't going to listen. He grabbed a hold of his, they usually grab the sleeve. They grabbed the sleeve and said, he's coming. Okay. So they went. When they were taking leave, taking permission from the blind Tamachachim to leave, Amlu, he said to them like this. He says, Atem higbaltem ponem. You were makabel ponem. Hanidim ve'enim roy. That could be seen, but doesn't see, because he's blind. Tizku shemerit, lahakbel ponem, to be makabel ponem, haroyim, that sees, ve'enim nidim, but is not seen. Which refers to Rabbi Shloimy, to the Shechina. The Shechina sees you, but you don't see it. Just like you saw So that what you could see but cannot see you, you should merit the opposite, that which sees you but you don't see it. So Amalei, so Rebbe said to Rebbe, says, Eicha Hashta. Now look, take a look. If I didn't come with you and I would have listened to you, Menat and Mahai Berchasa, you would have held me back from a bracha that you can't get such a beautiful bracha. So Amalei, they told this Talmud Chacham, Eman Shmilach. From who did you hear this? That it's so great to be makabel upon him that you can give such a beautiful bracha. So he says, Mepirke de Rabbi Yaakov Shmilach. He said, I heard it from the Drasha Rabbi Yaakov. Because Rabbi Yaakov ish kfar Chitaya. Rabbi Yaakov, a person from the village of Chitaya, he would go to his Rebbe every single day. Makabel upon him the Rebbe. Kikash, when Rabbi Yaakov got older, Amalei said his Rebbe said to him, sometimes the chussid is eltatif in the Rebbe. She said, let the master not be pained. The master can't do it anymore. It's Sifil, you come every single day. It's too much for you. Amalei, so Rabbi Yaakov said to the Rebbe, he says, you think it's claim? You think it's small what it says regarding the rabbis and Pasuk and Tilim? That he's going to live forever. He's not going to see destruction. Because he who sees the sages that when they die, which Taisa brings Pasham Shad is like in a wonder. You think the Rosh is not going to die? You think he's going to live forever? He's not going to see the destruction like the sages died? But the way he was darshaning over here was, no, he's going to live forever. He's not going to see destruction because he sees the sages that die. Meaning, someone sees the sages as they die. Yichi in the Pasuk saying he's going to live forever. So if you see the tzaddik, if you see the Rebbe when he's alive, all the more so a person's not going to see Gehenna, he's not going to see destruction, and therefore that's how I know how important it is from his drasha to Mekabel Punim the Rebbe, and that's how I knew to give you such a bracha that you saw someone who can't see, and you're going to see who could see, but you can't see him. Now related about traveling, so Rav Idi Abu the Rav Yaakov Baridi. He would normally travel for 3 months. He would leave his house, going to the Beis Medrash, meaning he would leave right after Pesach, and he would learn 1 day in the yeshiva, and would go back home to Misamech his wife on the end of the Sukkot. It's 6 months. He would travel for 3 months to get to yeshiva. He would learn for 1 day, and then he needed 3 months to get back home for Sukkot. They would call him Rabbanan, they would call him Bar Birab the Chagigah, which we all know the grace of Rebbe and Eretz Yisrael that makes the Bar Birab the Chagigah, that they make, once a year, you come and you sit in yeshiva and you learn, so they would make fun of him. That is the Talmud Chacham from the Ein Tog in the Yah, was learned. So Chalash Daite, he had Chalisha Sadas, he felt disheartened by this. So Korei Nafshi, he said himself a pasuk in Eve. Pasuk says, a joke to his friends he's going to be, etc., which the pasuk says, Korei Lilikavi Aneh. He's going to call it to God, and God's going to answer. Where he was like, people are making fun of me. Someone said to him, I beg of you, don't punish the rabbis because of the joke they're making of you. There's and we're sitting here 365, and this comes in 1 day, he's all excited. Nothing of Yechon made Joshua went into base mention, give a clap on the bima. I always wanted it to be like a mulligan site, and you just give a clap and the whole town comes, and he gives a clap and he quotes a pasuk in Yeshai. He says, and every day they're going to look for me. And the knowledge of my past they're going to desire. So we're going to ask the question. It says, only during the day do we look for Hashem? And the night time we don't. What says Yom Yom? And Lemel is going to teach you, even 1 day in the year. Yom Yom. It's meaning that even if it's just 1 day in the year, the Pasuk considers it as if he toiled entire gans yar. Because again, the person has to do what he could do, and this person, he couldn't do anything else. And he was 3 months away from the yeshiva, and he came 1 day, it's like as if he learned all year round. The same thing goes for the attribute of punishment. The Sibit says the pasuk in Bamidbar, it says B'misbah Yom Asher Tarkamas Aretz, the amount of days that you spied out the land of Eretz Yisrael, that's how much you can be punished, and that's why the Jews were in the Midbar for 40 years, because they spied out Eretz Yisrael for 40 days. My question, did they sin for 40 years? But they only sinned for 40 days. They should have been in the desert as a punishment for 40 days. Come to teach you, whoever violates a sin, even if it's 1 day in the year, the gets it as a kilo over as if he violated the whole year, and therefore he said, don't laugh at him. Again, it's about what a person could do, and depending on the circumstances, you could have 1 day like a year, and if a person, like we said, should learn no matter what they can learn, even 1 day a year could be, for the person, could be considered as if he's also any time.